Chapter 5, Joe Gandolfo. Joe Gandolfo said, "People won't buy what you're selling just because it has a low price." Joe Gandolfo was born in Richmond, Kentucky in 1936. His mother died of cancer when he was 13 years old, and his father died of a heart attack when Gandolfo was 17. Gandolfo graduated from college in 1958 and played a summer of minor league baseball. In 1959, he was teaching when he was recruited into the life insurance business. Gandolfo memorized a 22-page sales script before going to the company's training school. He could only sell $5,000 and $10,000 of life paid up at 65. He thought having only two options helped him. It gave him a track to run on as well as focus, and he said he couldn't get mixed up. Gandolfo began his sales career in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where he knew no one. The company guaranteed him $450 a month if he could sell 10 policies or $100,000 in 90 days. He sold $92,000 the first week. After 2 years of setting company records, Gandolfo and his family moved to Lakeland, Florida. Not knowing anyone, he started calling on ministers, and then he started asking the ministers for names of young couples. Funeral homes were his next market, and pharmacists were next. Then he called on personnel directors, sole proprietors, and executives who were new to the area. He focused on one occupation or one market before moving to the next. Gandolfo's first goals were to earn his Chartered Life Underwriter designation and to qualify for the $1 Million Roundtable. He achieved both in 1965 at age 29. Gandolfo then decided on another goal. He heard about Ben Feldman and knew that Ben Feldman sold more life insurance than 2/3 of the 1,800 life insurance companies. Gandolfo realized that one of Feldman's secrets was that he concentrated exclusively on a single group, the principal owners of private businesses. They had assets that were not easily marketable, and without life insurance, they might have to liquidate their businesses to pay taxes. In 1966, Gandolfo set a goal to beat Feldman and become the #1 producer. He started working with higher income groups, ranchers, automobile dealers, physicians, and attorneys. By 1970, he passed Ben Feldman in volume. In 1971, he wrote $114 million. By 1974, he hit $500 million. And then in 1975, he sold $1 billion worth of life insurance. Beginning in 1985, Gandolfo focused exclusively on estate planning and tax shelters. He charged a consulting fee and was booked 12 months in advance. Gandolfo was a devout Catholic and attended Mass every day. He believed the talents you possess are God's gifts to you, and what you do with those talents is your gift back to God. Gandolfo gave 50% of his adjusted gross income to God, and some of it went to Christian ministries that feed the hungry worldwide, like Operation Blessing. Gandolfo passed away from cancer in February 2015. He sent me an email about 5 weeks before he passed. It said, "Thanks for the kind words," referring to the book. Even though it's been more than 30 years, I can still remember driving, listening to Gandolfo on cassette tape as he talked about the importance of being right with the man upstairs. Gandolfo has co-authored and authored a number of books. Unfortunately, most are out of print, but occasionally you can find a used copy, and they are gems. His books include Ideas Are a Dime a Dozen, but the man who puts them into practice is priceless. God, I'll give you all the credit, and I'll take all the commissions. How to Sell Yourself Without Selling Your Soul. Sell and Grow Rich, the 10 Habits of Highly Successful Salespeople. And then selling is 98% understanding human beings and 2% product knowledge. Gandolfo was influenced by Vince Lombardi, the legendary coach of the Green Bay Packers, who believed that a person's priorities should be in this order: God, family, and job. And for Lombardi, that was very specifically the Green Bay Packers. One of the consistent themes in Gandolfo's books is that selling is 98% understanding human beings and 2% product knowledge. Unfortunately, I believe we as a business have reversed that formula. We're spending 98% of our time on product knowledge and only 2% understanding human beings. Gandolfo uses a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes. Many ideas grow better when transplanted into another mind than in the one where they sprang up. When you learn from Gandolfo, what you're getting is the product of a man who has read a lot of books, heard many people speak, and adopted what he could use into his own personality. I would encourage you to take from Gandolfo the great ideas and fit them with your own individual personality. Sales principle number 1, attitude. Here's some of Gandolfo's thoughts on attitude. God gave you 24 hours each day. If you don't utilize them to the best of your ability, you deceive God, your family, and yourself. The ideas between your ears are the only things that make you different from other salespeople. Gandolfo shares a quote from George Bernard Shaw on work habits. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. Gandolfo said the most influential book he read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Enthusiasm keeps us productive. Without it, your talents can be wasted. You won't have the drive to get out there and use your talents. Enthusiasm is the key ingredient of a successful person, no matter what business. To be enthusiastic, you need complete confidence in your product and the benefit it offers. You can't believe in it without owning it. Believe in the importance of enthusiasm, which means to be possessed by God. Sales principle number 2, sell yourself. For Gandolfo, if what he was selling was so good for his prospect, then it was good for him. Gandolfo said he didn't fully appreciate the value of life insurance or begin to reach his goals until he owned large amounts of it. Gandolfo believed that whatever you do, you can't do it effectively unless you believe in it. Before he owned $1 million of life insurance, he couldn't sell $1 million on anyone else's life because he didn't see how anyone could afford it. Gandolfo believed that if you don't believe in the product enough to buy it, then you're lying to the prospect on every sales call. Sales principle number 3, goals. For Gandolfo, goals are critical. He believed that you had to know what you're working for, and you need goals to keep up a high level of enthusiasm. When Gandolfo started out in the business, his goal was to make at least one sale a day, even if that sale was only a $5,000 or $10,000 policy. He then raised his goal to make 2 sales a day. His quota would be 10 sales a week, 40 sales each month, and 480 policies for the year. Gandolfo continued to increase his goals. Eventually, he beat Ben Feldman and achieved his goal. He then set his sights on $1 billion in sales, which he reached in 1975. Sales principle number 4, planning and imagining. Gandolfo's sales began to improve when he started using the technique of imagining. Before making a presentation, he would close his eyes and imagine the presentation, the questions and objections, his answers, and the successful close of the sale. With planning and imagining, you know ahead of time how you'll react during the sales call. You won't get caught off guard, and you won't stumble for an answer to an objection. Positive reinforcement also comes with effective imagining. The more the salesperson believes he or she can do something, the more likely it will happen. The mind is an incredible tool once a person learns how to use it. By going through sales in the mind, you anticipate objections, and by imagining a sale in advance, the mind thinks positively, which is a key ingredient to selling. Sales principle 5, study. Gandolfo believed that whatever you do, you should pick one area and become an expert. One way for you to become an expert is to read everything you can get your hands on. You should concentrate on information that relates to your specialty. Gandolfo would spend 20 hours a week studying and reading business-related material. Sales principle number 6, sales approach. For Gandolfo, the key to getting appointments is to ask simple questions. For example, he would ask questions like this one. Would you have any objection to reviewing your life insurance with me? For someone new in the business, Gandolfo suggests you ask that question of every human being you meet. Here's another simple approach that Gandolfo used to get appointments. I don't want to sell you anything now, but I want an opportunity to meet with you and share an idea that's helped to other automobile dealers here in Lincoln. If it fits in with your philosophy and pocketbook, fine. If not, I'll be on my way. Why does this approach work so well? It works for several good reasons. First, the prospect is bound to be more interested in you sharing an idea than buying something. Who doesn't want to hear an idea? When it comes down to it, the only thing you as a life insurance producer have to sell are ideas. People buy the idea, not the thing. Second, no matter what their occupation, everyone believes their problems are unique. They want to deal with a specialist. An auto dealer will respond positively when you say, this idea has been of help to other auto dealers like yourself. Third, Gandolfo encourages you to state the prospect city because everyone likes dealing with someone who understands the local area. And Gandolfo continues his sales approach. Would next Tuesday or Thursday be convenient? Remember, each prospect is thinking, from 8 to 5, I'm making money. I don't want to take time from my making money to talk about the salesperson making money. And if the prospect won't give you an appointment, Gandolfo suggests you ask, may I ask you a question? When John Adams was president, the federal government came within 3 votes of abolishing the patent office. They thought they had invented everything that could be invented. So what's the use of having a patent office? Think about it. Since then, we've had telephone, cars, television, airplanes, computers, smartphones, etc. So, Mr. Prospect, my question for you is, have you closed your patent office? If you owned a store, you would want the latest merchandise no matter what business you're in. You would probably go to seminars or training for new ideas. Well, there are new ideas and concepts in life insurance. I have new ideas and concepts in life insurance. I have new ideas, and all I want to do is run them past you. If they fit in with your philosophy and pocketbook, fine. If not, I'll be on my way. Do you have an objection? I will tell you emphatically, this sales approach works. Sales principle number 7, presentation. Gandolfo started his presentation with an introduction. The purpose of the introduction is to establish your credibility. Gandolfo would use it to explain why the prospect should do business with him instead of someone else. Gandolfo would point out on his business card that he was a life member of the $1 Million Roundtable. He would talk about the National Quality Award, which he said he received because he stays in touch with his clients. Then he would point out that he's a chartered life underwriter, which he would describe as being the equivalent in the life insurance business of a CPA in accounting. Next, Gandolfo would find out what the prospect needs with a series of thought-provoking, open-ended questions. How do you feel about life insurance as an investment? What's your philosophy on life insurance? How do you feel about spouse insurance? Do you prefer permanent or term insurance? And Gandolfo's approach with that was, if the client wanted term insurance, he would sell term insurance. The following year, after the client loves him, he'd come back and sell him permanent term. He believed that the agent should not try to change the prospect's philosophy at first. What would happen if you die or become disabled? Gandolfo used this question to establish the need for life insurance and income protection. What will happen if you retire and live a long life? This question would lead to discussion of permanent insurance and long-term cash values. Gandolfo believed the key to a good presentation is good, open-ended questions. The key to understanding people is asking questions and asking tons of them. Asking those questions gets the prospect talking about the prospect, and that will give you clues about what they'll buy. The secret to a good salesperson is to combine the ability to ask good questions and listen closely to the answers. Gandolfo liked to say, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. He wants us to do twice as much listening as talking. No one ever learns from talking. Your job is to guide the prospect with the right questions so that they come to the conclusion that they should buy. Sales principle number 8, closing. When it came time to close, Gandolfo would go through the policy illustration, answer the prospect's questions about what happens to the money during one of these 4 things: die, become disabled, quit, or retire. Then Gandolfo would give the prospect options, and in doing so, he would avoid yes-no options. For example, you never want to say, do you want to buy this policy? Instead, Gandolfo would give yes options. For example, assume that a $100,000 policy costs $2,000 a year, while a $200,000 policy costs $4,000 a year. That being the case, you would ask the prospect which one best fits with your financial situation. In closing, objections often arise. The key to handling objections is to address them in the presentation. If you keep hearing the same objections, then you should change your presentation to answer it. Here are a couple of Gandolfo's approaches to common objections. I want to think it over and I can't afford it. With I want to think it over, with this objection, the prospect is saying, I don't know you well enough, you haven't explained it clearly to me, or you've gone so fast that I haven't been able to comprehend it. First, don't take tomorrow for an answer. Lots of prospects say, I want to think it over. If they think it over, 95% don't buy. Callbacks don't pay off. If you're presenting correctly, you're finding out what the prospect wants and satisfying those wants. What could happen in a few days that would make him want to buy if he doesn't want to buy it now? The question you should ask with this objection is, what additional information do you hope to learn to make a decision? By asking that question, you're telling the prospect that waiting won't help him make a more informed decision. You can also point out that successful people make decisions while relevant information is still fresh in their mind. A follow-up question for the prospect who wants to think it over might be, whatever you do, buy or not buy, you're making a decision today. Does it make sense to expose your family to death or illness when you can protect them for X amount of dollars that you won't really miss? Then with the objection, I can't afford it, Gandolfo says one way to address this objection is to get a money commitment early in the presentation. If you haven't done that, then you might ask the question, would spending the money make a difference in your lifestyle? Another good question with this objection is, what amount do you feel you could set aside? Then you can lower the benefit amount to match the premium. In other words, offer a lower priced alternative. Another approach Gandolfo recommends is, may I ask you a question? Why did you allow this interview? Why did you allow me to come in here if you can't afford it? Now, what's the real reason? Sales principle number 9, referred leads. Agents are always asking for leads, but Gandolfo believed referred leads are the best leads. And guess what? They are free. Gandolfo learned about referred leads from a paint salesman. He went to the paint salesman's apartment and saw all of the salesman's awards for being the top paint salesman in the U.S. Gandolfo asked him how he did it, and the paint salesman said he used the magic words, I need your help, and then he would ask for 3 names. Think about who says no when you say, I need your help. And notice he asked for 3 names, not 5 or 10. People tend to think in threes, and there aren't that many people with more than 3 good friends. Gandolfo started telling everyone, I need your help, and asking for 3 names. It didn't make any difference if he had sold the people or not. Gandolfo would follow by saying, I'll approach them on the same professional basis that I approached you. Gandolfo would find out as much information as possible about the referrals, age, occupation, etc. Then he asked, will you see them before the next week? If so, would you mind mentioning my name? And would you mind if I mentioned your name? Then when he called, he would ask, did Sam Jones mention my name? Sales principle 10, product knowledge. Remember, Gandolfo didn't sell life insurance, he sold ideas. The top producers sell concepts, ideas, not product. Gandolfo believed that selling is 98% understanding human beings and 2% product knowledge. It's important to know the product, but knowing everything about the product doesn't mean the agent has to tell everything to every client on every sales call. Too many technical details confuse prospects. Customers don't want to know how an air conditioner works. They just want to know that it'll keep them cool on a hot day. You have to listen to prospects tell you what they want to buy. The good salesperson uses the product knowledge to make appropriate recommendations that meet that prospect's needs and close the sales. Sales Principle 11, Advice for Beginners. Gandolfo had two important ideas of sales advice for the beginning salesperson. First, ask everyone the following question. Would you have any objections to reviewing your life insurance with me? And then second, pick an area you understand and become an expert in it. Sales principle number 12, see lots of people and make calls. The president of Gandolfo's life insurance company used to tell people Gandolfo had 16 years of experience, even though he had only been in the business for 8. At first, Gandolfo was confused by that. But he said when he thought about it, it made a lot of sense to him. If I see 500 people and you see 250, regardless of age or number of years in the business, I have twice as much experience because I've talked to twice as many people. Gandolfo said, I can't impress enough upon you who are starting in the business to see the people. By virtue of seeing people, getting objections, getting no's, and getting yeses, you are sharpening your sales skills. Each no gets you closer to a yes, and you learn from the no's. Joe Gandolfo was a record-setting salesperson who spent his career setting lofty goals and smashing them. And like so many of the greats, he was willing to share his principles with others in the business. Remember that he believed the talents you possess are God's gifts to you, and what you do with those talents is your gift back to God. For the agent with a more spiritual nature, and for those who simply want to get the best from themselves, Gandolfo's principles are good ones to follow.